Welcome to Sleep University. Tonight, we embark on a journey of serene exploration, a passage into the profound understanding of the Tibetan Bardos. Allow your body to settle, your mind to open. There is no need for effortful study, simply a gentle willingness to receive these ancient insights as you relax. This is an invitation to passively learn, to absorb wisdom that speaks to the nature of consciousness, of life, dream, and the transitions between. Let the words and stillness guide you as we delve into teachings designed to illuminate our experience and cultivate profound peace. Our journey begins then, not in a land of abstract theories, but in the very heart of human experience, as understood through the profound traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. Imagine for a moment the vast windswept plateaus and towering peaks of the Himalayas. It was in this environment, both geographically isolated and spiritually fertile, that a unique stream of Buddhist thought and practice took root and flourished, preserving and developing wisdom traditions that originated in ancient India. Many of these teachings trace their lineage back to the legendary monastic university of Nalanda, a beacon of learning in ancient India, a vibrant crucible where thousands of scholars and practitioners delved into the deepest questions of existence, philosophy, logic, medicine, and contemplative science for over 700 years. It was from Nalanda and other great centers of Indian Mahayana Buddhism that masters and texts journeyed, often arduously, across the formidable mountains, carrying with them seeds of profound insight. Tibetan Buddhism, therefore, is not a monolith, but a rich tapestry woven from various strands of Indian Buddhist thought, particularly the Mahayana or Great Vehicle, and the Vajrayana, the Diamond Vehicle. Its core aim, consistently, is the inner transformation of the individual, leading not just to personal peace, but to a boundless compassion and an unwavering understanding of the true nature of reality. This transformation is seen as the path to liberation from suffering for oneself and, crucially, for all sentient beings. At the very foundation of this path are certain fundamental insights, often distilled into what are known as the Four Seals, or sometimes related to the Four Noble Truths. These are not dogmas to be blindly accepted, but truths to be investigated and realized through personal experience and contemplation. The first of these is the profound understanding of impermanence, or anicca in Pali, anitya in Sanskrit. Everything that is compounded, everything that arises from causes and conditions, is subject to change. This applies to the grand sweep of cosmic cycles, the rise and fall of mountains and civilizations, and equally to the most intimate aspects of our lives. Our bodies change, moment by moment. Our thoughts arise and pass like clouds in the sky. Our emotions, however intense they may feel, are transient waves in the ocean of awareness. Nothing remains static. To truly internalize this truth is not a cause for despair, but rather a profound source of liberation. When we cease to expect permanence from that which is inherently impermanent, we release ourselves from a great deal of struggle, from the anxiety of trying to hold on to fleeting pleasures and the futile resistance to inevitable change. Recognizing impermanence allows for a spaciousness in the mind, an ability to flow with life's currents with greater ease and wisdom. It encourages us to cherish each moment, knowing its precious, unrepeatable nature. Flowing directly from the reality of impermanence is the second foundational understanding, the nature of suffering, or perhaps more accurately translated dissatisfaction, known as dukkha. This is not merely about the obvious forms of physical pain or mental anguish, though it certainly includes them. The Buddhist understanding of dukkha is more subtle and pervasive. It encompasses what are often described as three types of suffering. The first is the suffering of suffering, the manifest pains, illnesses, losses, and frustrations that are an undeniable part of life. The second is the suffering of change, the anxiety and distress that arise even from pleasant experiences because we know they are impermanent and will eventually end, or because we cling to them fearing their loss. The happiness we derive from conditioned things is itself a setup for future dissatisfaction when those conditions change. The third, and most profound, is the all-pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. This refers to the underlying, subtle unsatisfactoriness inherent in being caught in the cycle of conditioned existence, driven by ignorance and karmic predispositions, where our experience is constantly shaped by factors beyond our complete control, and where we are subject to the endless round of becoming. By deeply understanding the roots and nuances of this dissatisfaction, we are motivated to seek its cause and its cessation. This leads us to the third pivotal insight, one that is often challenging to our conventional way of thinking, yet is profoundly liberating: the concept of no self, or anatta in Pali, anatman in Sanskrit. This teaching posits that there is no fixed, independent, unchanging I or me residing at the core of our being, no permanent soul or singular essence that constitutes who we are. What we conventionally label as self is, from this perspective, a dynamic and interdependent process, a convenient designation for a constantly changing collection of physical and mental components. These are often categorized as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas: form, our physical body; feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral sensations; perceptions, how we recognize and label sensory input; mental formations, our thoughts, volitions, habits, biases; and consciousness, the basic awareness of these phenomena. None of these aggregates, taken individually or collectively, can be identified as a permanent, singular, autonomous self. The body changes, feelings arise and pass, perceptions shift, thoughts are in constant flux, and consciousness itself is dependent on objects. The self we experience is more like a flowing river, constantly changing, yet maintaining a semblance of continuity, or like a chariot, which is not its wheels, nor its axle, nor its frame, but a designation applied to the assembled parts. Understanding anatta is not an exercise in nihilism, suggesting that nothing matters. Quite the contrary. It is about freeing ourselves from the immense burden of defending, gratifying, and perpetuating a reified, illusory self that is the source of so much of our clinging, aversion, fear, and conflict. When the illusion of a separate, solid self begins to dissolve, a natural compassion and interconnectedness with all beings can more easily arise. And this brings us to the fourth foundational truth, the possibility of liberation, or nirvana. Nibbana in Pali, which literally means to extinguish or to blow out, referring to the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion that fuel suffering and the cycle of rebirth known as samsara. Nirvana is not a heavenly paradise one goes to after death, but a state of profound peace, wisdom, clarity, and ultimate freedom that can be realized in this very life. It is the cessation of dukkha, the awakening to the true nature of reality, empty of inherent existence, luminous and unbound. It is the mind untangled from its habitual patterns of reactivity, abiding in its natural pristine state. This liberation is the ultimate goal of the Buddhist path, a state of unshakable well-being beyond the vicissitudes of conditioned existence. Woven deeply into the fabric of Tibetan Buddhism, particularly within its Mahayana expression, is the luminous ideal of the bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is an enlightenment being, one who, motivated by profound compassion, karuna, and guided by wisdom, prajna, postpones their own entry into full nirvana to dedicate themselves to the liberation of all sentient beings. This is a path of immense courage and altruism. The Bodhisattva recognizes the deep interconnectedness of all life, understanding that true fulfillment cannot be found in isolation while others still suffer. Their aspiration is not merely to escape samsara, but to transform it, to become a source of benefit and awakening for countless others. This path is often characterized by the practice of the 6 perfections, or paramitas: generosity, ethical discipline, patience, enthusiastic effort, meditative concentration, and wisdom. These are not just abstract virtues, but active qualities cultivated in every aspect of life, transforming the practitioner and benefiting those around them. The Bodhisattva ideal imbues Tibetan Buddhism with a profound sense of universal responsibility and a vast, compassionate heart. Within the broader Mahayana framework, Tibetan Buddhism is especially renowned for its embrace of the Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle, also known as Tantric Buddhism or Mantrayana. The Vajrayana is considered a swift and powerful path to enlightenment, though one that requires great diligence, skillful guidance from a qualified teacher, and a stable ethical foundation. It is called the diamond vehicle because, like a diamond, it is seen as indestructible and capable of cutting through all obscurations and delusions. The Vajrayana builds upon the Mahayana understanding of emptiness, shunyata, and the inherent Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha, present within all sentient beings. The idea that our fundamental nature is already pure, awake, and luminous, merely obscured by temporary defilements. A key characteristic of the Vajrayana is its principle of transformation rather than solely renunciation. While foundational practices emphasize renouncing harmful actions and attitudes, the Vajrayana provides sophisticated methods to work directly with the energies of mind, including powerful emotions like desire, anger, or ignorance. Instead of simply suppressing these energies, the practitioner learns to recognize their empty nature and transmute them into wisdom and compassionate activity. Imagine a skilled alchemist who transforms base metals into gold. Similarly, the Vajrayana practitioner, through specific contemplative techniques, learns to transform the raw, seemingly negative energies of the psyche into catalysts for awakening. This often involves practices like deity yoga, visualizing oneself as an enlightened being to awaken those qualities within, subtle energy work with channels and winds within the body, nadis and prana, and the use of mantra, sacred syllables that resonate with particular aspects of enlightened mind. These methods are designed to purify perception and directly experience the sacredness inherent in all phenomena. A profound and distinctive concept within the Vajrayana is that of taking the result as the path, phalayana. This means that instead of viewing enlightenment as a distant goal to be achieved only after a long period of purification and accumulation of merit, the practitioner is encouraged to cultivate, here and now, the enlightened perspective itself. One learns to see the world and oneself through the lens of inherent purity, wisdom, and compassion, as if Buddhahood were already fully manifest. This is not a form of make-believe, but a powerful psychological and spiritual discipline that accelerates the removal of obscurations and the manifestation of one's innate Buddha nature. It involves recognizing the sacred outlook, seeing all beings as potential Buddhas, all sounds as mantra, all thoughts as expressions of wisdom. It is from this incredibly rich and sophisticated contemplative tradition that the text central to our exploration tonight, the Bardo Thodol, emerges. As mentioned, while widely known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, its authentic title, Bardo Thodol Chenmo, translates more accurately as the Great Liberation through Hearing in the Intermediate States. This title is profoundly revealing. It underscores that this text is not primarily about death as an ending, but about liberation, freedom from suffering and confusion, achieved through hearing specific guiding instructions during the intermediate states, the Bardos. The Bardo Thodol is part of a larger body of teachings attributed to the great 8th century master Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, who is credited with firmly establishing Buddhism in Tibet. Many of these teachings, including the Bardo Thodol, are considered terma, or hidden treasures, texts and sacred objects concealed by Padmasambhava and his disciples to be rediscovered at auspicious times in the future by destined individuals known as tertans, or treasure revealers. This tradition suggests that the teachings are revealed when the world is most in need of them, and when conditions are ripe for their understanding. The structure of the Bardo Thodol is essentially a detailed guidebook, a spiritual itinerary for the consciousness after it separates from the physical body. However, its wisdom is not confined to the deceased. It is considered equally vital for the living, as it provides a profound understanding of the nature of mind, the processes of experience, and the opportunities for spiritual growth that exist in every moment, particularly during times of transition. It meticulously maps out various Bardo states. A Bardo is an in-between state, a gap, a transition, or an intermediate period. The text outlines primarily 6 such Bardos: the Kaine Bardo, the natural Bardo of this life, from birth until the onset of the dying process; the Milam Bardo, the Bardo of dreaming, experienced during sleep; the Samten Bardo, the Bardo of meditative concentration; the Chikai Bardo, the painful Bardo of the moment of death, when the consciousness experiences the dawning of the fundamental clear light; the Chonyid Bardo, the luminous Bardo of Dharmata, or reality as it is, where consciousness encounters various peaceful and wrathful visions, understood as projections of its own nature; the Sidpa Bardo, the karmic Bardo of becoming, where the consciousness, driven by past karma, seeks rebirth. The emphasis on liberation through hearing is significant. In the disembodied state, or even in states of deep meditation or near death, the sense of hearing is often considered to be one of the last to fade, and one of the most potent channels for receiving guidance. The Bardo Thodol is traditionally read aloud to the dying or recently deceased, with the understanding that the words, infused with wisdom and compassion, can awaken recognition in the consciousness, guiding it towards liberation or a favorable rebirth, even if the individual was not a dedicated practitioner during their lifetime. It reflects a deep psychological sophistication, acknowledging the power of suggestion, familiarity, and loving guidance to influence the mind in subtle states. The intent is profoundly compassionate, aiming to alleviate fear and confusion, and to point the way toward the mind's own innate freedom. And this is where the profound wisdom of the Tibetan Bardos connects so beautifully and directly with our shared exploration here at Sleep University. The Tibetan tradition does not dismiss states like sleep and dreaming as mere biological functions or meaningless psychic static. Instead, sleep is recognized as a bardo, the Milam Bardo, an intermediate state with its own unique characteristics and potentials. Dreams are seen not just as random firings of neurons, but as a realm where the mind's creative power is exceptionally vivid, where karmic imprints can manifest, and where, with training, as in the practices of dream yoga or lucid dreaming, one can cultivate awareness, insight, and even prepare for the experiences of the death bardos. There is an understanding of a deep continuity of consciousness across the spectrum of waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and even the states beyond physical life. The clarity and stability of mind cultivated during waking life, through meditation and mindfulness, directly impact the quality of our sleep, our dreams, and our capacity to navigate other transitions with awareness. By gently familiarizing ourselves with the subtle dynamics of our own minds as we drift into sleep, as we navigate the landscapes of our dreams, we are, in a very real sense, preparing ourselves. We are becoming acquainted with the processes of consciousness, the arising and passing of phenomena, the power of mental habit, and the ever-present potential for recognition and awakening. These ancient teachings, therefore, invite us not to fear the unknown, but to become curious, gentle explorers of our own inner worlds. They suggest that wisdom is not confined to our most alert and active waking hours, but can be discovered and cultivated in the quietude of rest, in the mysterious theater of dreams, and in all the transitional spaces that life presents. As we proceed, we will delve more deeply into these specific bardo states, always with the intention of gleaning insights that can illuminate our path, soothe our minds, and help us rest in a deeper understanding. Having touched upon the foundational landscape of Tibetan Buddhist thought and the profound guidance offered by the Bardo Thodol, we now turn our gentle attention to a concept that lies at the very heart of these teachings, a view that, once glimpsed, can radically reorient our understanding of ourselves and the universe. This is the principle of non-duality. Our ordinary, everyday experience of the world is predominantly dualistic. We perceive ourselves as a subject, an I, separate from a world of objects out there. There is me and not me. There is mind and there is matter. We experience good and bad, pleasure and pain, self and other, birth and death, as distinct, often opposing realities. This dualistic framework is deeply ingrained in our language, our thought patterns, and our cultural conditioning. It is the default operating system of our conventional mind, allowing us to navigate the practicalities of life. Yet the wisdom traditions of the East, and particularly the Mahayana and Vajrayana schools of Buddhism, invite us to look deeper, to question this fundamental assumption of separation. They propose that underlying this apparent duality is a more profound, indivisible reality, a state of non-duality. The term non-dual simply means not two. It points to the ultimate interconnectedness and interpenetration of all phenomena, suggesting that the perceived separations are not as absolute or inherent as they appear. It is an invitation to see beyond the surface distinctions to a ground of being where such divisions dissolve. It is crucial, however, to understand what Buddhist non-duality implies and what it does not. It is not a simplistic assertion that everything is one, in the sense of a single, undifferentiated substance, a kind of cosmic blob. This latter view is closer to what is sometimes called monism. While sharing some similarities in challenging strict dualism, Buddhist non-duality, especially as articulated in the Madhyamaka or Middle Way philosophy founded by the great Indian sage Nagarjuna, is more nuanced. It emphasizes the concept of shunyata, often translated as emptiness or voidness. Now, the word emptiness can sound rather stark, perhaps even nihilistic, as if suggesting that nothing exists or that life is meaningless. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Shunyata does not mean non-existence, rather it points to the absence of inherent, independent existence. It suggests that no phenomenon, including ourselves, possesses a fixed, self-contained, or intrinsically real nature when examined closely. Everything arises in dependence upon causes and conditions. Everything is interconnected and mutually influencing. Think of a flower. A flower is not just a flower in isolation. It is the sun, the rain, the soil, the seed, the air, the gardener's care. If you remove these constituent causes and conditions, the flower as an independent entity disappears. It is empty of a separate, self-sufficient essence, yet it undeniably appears and functions in the world. This emptiness, shunyata, is not a blank void, but a dynamic, vibrant potentiality, the very ground from which all appearances arise. It is the openness that allows for change, for interaction, for existence itself. If things possessed a fixed, inherent nature, they could not change, interact, or come into being. So, paradoxically, it is this very emptiness of inherent existence that makes life, with all its richness and diversity, possible. It's not that things don't exist, it's that they don't exist in the solid, independent and permanent way we habitually perceive them. They are more like illusions or dreams, or echoes, appearing vividly yet lacking ultimate, independent substance. This understanding helps to distinguish non-duality from monism. Monism might propose that all waves are ultimately made of one water. Buddhist non-duality, particularly through the lens of shunyata, would say that the wave and the water are not two separate things, nor are they simply one undifferentiated thing. The wave is a temporary manifestation of the water, entirely dependent on conditions like wind and current. It is empty of being a wave separate from the water and its conditions, yet it clearly appears as a wave. It is a dynamic process, not a static entity. Similarly, all phenomena are like these waves on the ocean of reality, distinct in their appearance and function, yet not separate from the underlying ground, and empty of any isolated self-existing nature. This ultimate ground of reality, this non-dual, empty, yet luminous nature, is often referred to in Mahayana Buddhism as the Dharmakaya. The word Dharma here refers to ultimate truth or reality, and Kaya means body. So Dharmakaya is the truth body or reality body. It is the unconditioned, unborn, unceasing nature of all things, beyond all conceptual elaborations, beyond existence and non-existence as conventionally understood. It is the absolute aspect of Buddhahood, the ultimate nature of a Buddha's mind, which is also the ultimate nature of our own mind and all of reality, if we could but recognize it. The Dharmakaya is often described as being characterized by emptiness, shunyata, luminosity, prabhasvara, and unimpeded compassionate energy. It is the fundamental space of awareness from which all phenomena arise, in which they abide, and into which they dissolve, without the space itself ever changing. Closely related to the Dharmakaya, and particularly relevant to our journey through the Bardos, is the concept of the clear light, or osal in Tibetan, prabhasvara in Sanskrit. The clear light is often described as the innate luminosity or radiance of awareness itself. It is the primordial, fundamental nature of mind, empty of inherent existence, yet brilliantly clear, aware, and cognizant. This clear light is not a light that comes from an external source, like the sun. It is the self-shining clarity of consciousness itself, the basic knowing quality of mind that is present even when there are no objects to perceive. It is said to be our most fundamental nature, the ground of our being. The Tibetan teachings emphasize that this clear light is continuously present, though usually obscured by our conceptual thoughts, disturbing emotions, and the busyness of our dualistic perceptions. However, at certain pivotal moments, such as in very deep meditation, at the moment of falling asleep, in orgasm, during fainting, and most significantly at the moment of death, the conceptual mind temporarily dissolves, and this fundamental clear light can dawn directly and nakedly in our experience. The experience of the clear light is a direct encounter with non-duality. In that moment, the distinction between subject and object, perceiver and perceived, collapses. There is simply pure, luminous awareness without division. This is why the dawning of the clear light in the Tibetan Bardo, the bardo of the moment of death, is considered such a crucial opportunity for liberation. To recognize this clear light as one's own intrinsic nature, as the Dharmakaya, is to awaken to Buddhahood on the spot. So, how does an understanding of non-duality, of shunyata, of the Dharmakaya and the clear light, practically impact our lives and our approach to the Bardos? The implications are profound and transformative. Firstly, it can dramatically reduce grasping and aversion. Much of our suffering arises from clinging to things we perceive as inherently desirable, people, possessions, experiences, a solid sense of self, an aversion to things we perceive as inherently undesirable, loss, pain, criticism, impermanence. But if all phenomena, including ourselves, are empty of inherent independent existence, if they are like dream images or reflections in a mirror, then the basis for such intense clinging and aversion begins to weaken. We can still appreciate beauty and strive for well-being, but with less desperation, less fear of loss, knowing that all things are transient and interdependent. We can face difficulties with greater equanimity, understanding their conditioned and impermanent nature. Secondly, realizing our interconnectedness and the illusory nature of a separate self naturally cultivates compassion and loving kindness. If the other is not fundamentally separate from me, if their joys and sorrows are part of the same web of being, then empathy arises more spontaneously. The Bodhisattva's vow to liberate all beings stems from this profound understanding of non-dual reality. The sense of alienation and isolation, which often fuels selfishness and conflict, diminishes as we touch into our shared ground. Thirdly, an understanding of non-duality fosters a deep sense of peace and equanimity. The constant turmoil of our dualistic mind, with its endless judgments, comparisons, hopes and fears, begins to settle. We find a still point within the turning world, a spacious awareness that can hold all experiences without being overwhelmed by them. This is not a state of indifference, but one of profound, clear-sighted engagement with life, free from the reactivity born of dualistic delusion. Furthermore, this perspective radically reframes our understanding of life and death. If there is no inherently existing separate self that is born and that dies, then birth and death are seen as transitions within a continuous, non-dual flow of consciousness, rather than absolute beginnings and endings. This doesn't deny the reality of grief or the significance of physical death, but it places them within a much vaster context. It can alleviate the existential terror often associated with death, seeing it as a passage, an opportunity for transformation rather than annihilation. Now, let us bring this understanding of non-duality directly into the context of the Bardo experiences, particularly those encountered after physical death, as described in the Bardo Thodol. In the Chikai Bardo, the Bardo of the moment of death, the direct dawning of the primordial clear light is the ultimate non-dual experience. As the gross conceptual mind dissolves, the fundamental, luminous, empty nature of awareness shines forth. The crucial instruction here is simply to recognize this clear light as one's own true nature, to merge with it, to rest in it without distraction. If this recognition occurs, it is said that liberation is attained. The failure to recognize it, due to ingrained dualistic habits of grasping at a self and projecting a separate reality, leads to a momentary lapse into unconsciousness and the subsequent arising of the next Bardo. Then, in the Chonyid Bardo, the Bardo of luminous Dharmata or reality as it is, the consciousness encounters a dazzling array of visions, often described as peaceful and wrathful deities, brilliant lights and powerful sounds. From a non-dual perspective, these are not external, independently existing entities or objective realities. They are understood as the spontaneous, energetic manifestations or projections of one's own mind, the dynamic display of one's own intrinsic awareness, shaped by karmic imprints. The peaceful deities represent the pure qualities of enlightened mind, compassion, wisdom, loving kindness. The wrathful deities, which can appear terrifying, are not demonic forces, but the transformed energies of our own negative emotions, our own anger, pride, jealousy, ignorance, now manifesting in their primal energetic form. The key to navigating the Chonyid Bardo, according to the teachings, is again recognition. One is instructed to recognize all these appearances, however beautiful or terrifying, as the display of one's own mind, as inseparable from one's own non-dual awareness. If one recognizes them as such, without fear, without attraction or aversion, then these very appearances become gateways to liberation. They are seen as the play of Dharmata, the self-radiance of the clear light. However, if, due to habitual dualistic thinking, one perceives these visions as external, as other, then fear, confusion and aversion arise, leading the consciousness to be propelled further into the cycle of becoming, into the Sidpa Bardo. The entire drama of the Chonyid Bardo is an unfolding of non-dual reality. The challenge is to maintain the non-dual view. Therefore, the ultimate view, or understanding that underpins the Bardo teachings, is profoundly non-dual. The instructions given in the Bardo Thodol are all designed to gently guide the consciousness toward this recognition, to help it cut through dualistic appearances and rest in the fundamental ground of being. Practices undertaken during life, such as meditation on emptiness, familiarization with the nature of mind, and the cultivation of the Bodhisattva spirit, are all aimed at weakening dualistic habits and strengthening the capacity for non-dual recognition. One way to gently contemplate non-duality is through metaphors. Imagine the vast, open sky. Clouds, storms, sunshine, stars all appear within the sky, are contained by the sky, yet the sky itself remains unchanged, unstained, boundless. Our awareness is like this sky, and our thoughts, emotions, and experiences are like the weather phenomena. They arise within awareness, but are not awareness itself. Awareness and its contents are not two separate things. The appearances are the display of awareness. Or consider a dream. While dreaming, the dream world and its inhabitants appear entirely real and separate from us, the dreamer. We react to dream figures with joy or fear. Yet, upon waking, we realize that the entire dream, the landscape, the characters, the events, was nothing other than the manifestation of our own mind. All of it was non-dual with the dreaming consciousness. The Bardo experiences are likened to this. Another classic metaphor is the ocean and its waves. Each wave has its unique form and movement, yet it is never separate from the ocean. It is simply the ocean manifesting as a wave. When the wave subsides, it doesn't go anywhere. It simply returns to its fundamental nature as ocean. Our individual lives are like these waves. Or think of a mirror. A mirror can reflect countless images. Beautiful, ugly, peaceful, terrifying. The images appear vividly in the mirror, yet the mirror itself is not affected, not stained, not improved or diminished by them. It remains clear, open, and reflective. Our primordial awareness is like this mirror, and the experiences of the Bardos are like the reflections. The key is to recognize oneself as the mirror, not the fleeting reflections. Understanding non-duality, then, is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a profound shift in perspective that can bring deep solace, courage, and wisdom. It allows us to approach life, sleep, dreaming, and even the ultimate transition of death, not with fear rooted in the illusion of a separate, vulnerable self, but with a sense of openness, curiosity, and trust in the vast, luminous, and interconnected nature of being. It is the embrace of reality as it is, beyond the constricting confines of our dualistic judgments. It is the ground upon which true peace is found, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but arises from the very core of our being, which is, ultimately, not separate from the being of all. As we continue to explore the specific Bardos, let this gentle understanding of non-duality be a soft light that illuminates our path, reminding us that even in the most intense or disorienting experiences, we are never truly separate from the fundamental ground of luminous, empty awareness. Having explored the profound view of non-duality, which serves as the luminous ground for understanding the Bardo teachings, we now gently shift our focus to the interim stages, the transitional states, that we navigate not in some distant post-mortem realm, but here and now, within the very fabric of our current existence. The Tibetan understanding of Bardos is remarkably encompassing. It sees our entire life, and indeed all states of consciousness, as a series of intermediate phases, each offering unique opportunities for awareness, learning, and spiritual growth. These are not merely passive waiting periods, but dynamic arenas for practice and transformation. Tonight we will explore 3 such Bardos that unfold within the compass of this life: the Kiene Bardo, or the natural Bardo of this life, the Milam Bardo, the Bardo of dreaming, and the Samten Bardo, the Bardo of meditative concentration. By becoming familiar with these everyday Bardos, we cultivate the skills and insights necessary to navigate all of life's transitions, including the most profound journey beyond this present existence, with greater wisdom and fearlessness. Let us begin with the Kiene Bardo, the natural Bardo of this life. This Bardo encompasses the entire span of our current existence, from the moment of birth or even conception, until the outer and inner signs of the dying process begin to manifest. It is, in a sense, the most familiar Bardo, the stage upon which the drama of our daily lives unfolds. Yet, precisely because of its familiarity, we often overlook its transitional nature and its immense potential. The teachings emphasize that this human life, endowed with intelligence and the opportunity to encounter spiritual wisdom, is an incredibly precious and rare occurrence, a precious human rebirth. It is considered the optimal ground for spiritual practice, a unique window of opportunity to awaken to our true nature and make meaningful progress on the path to liberation. Within the Tibetan Bardo, every moment is, in reality, an intermediate state, a transition from what has just passed to what is about to arise. The breath you just took is gone. The next one has not yet arrived. This very instant is a bardo, a fleeting bridge. Our thoughts, emotions, sensations, and perceptions are constantly arising and ceasing, a continuous flow of impermanent phenomena. The challenge and the opportunity of the Tibetan Bardo is to recognize this dynamic, transitional reality amidst the seeming solidity and continuity of our everyday experience. The primary work within the Tibetan Bardo is to engage with life consciously, to use our experiences as fuel for spiritual growth. This involves several key aspects. Firstly, cultivating mindfulness and awareness, paying attention to our present experience, our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and perceptions, without judgment, but with a clear and gentle curiosity. This practice helps us to see the impermanent and conditioned nature of our experiences and to loosen the grip of habitual, often unhelpful patterns of thought and reaction. It allows us to step out of autopilot and into a more direct and authentic engagement with life. Secondly, the Tibetan Bardo is the prime time for understanding and working with karma. Karma, meaning action, refers to the universal law of cause and effect, where our intentional actions, of body, speech, and mind, create imprints that shape our future experiences. Positive, wholesome actions rooted in kindness, generosity, and wisdom lead to happiness and favorable conditions. Negative, unwholesome actions rooted in greed, hatred, and delusion lead to suffering and unfavorable conditions. By becoming aware of our motivations and the consequences of our actions, we can consciously choose to cultivate positive karma and purify negative karmic imprints, thus steering our lives in a more beneficial direction for ourselves and others. This isn't about fatalism, but about recognizing our agency in co-creating our reality. Thirdly, this bardo is the opportunity to cultivate wisdom, prajna, and compassion, karuna. Wisdom involves developing a deeper understanding of the nature of reality, impermanence, no self, emptiness, and interconnectedness. This can be cultivated through study, contemplation, and meditation. Compassion involves developing a deep empathy for the suffering of all beings and a genuine wish for them to be free from that suffering. It is cultivated through practices like loving-kindness meditation, metta, and reflecting on our shared humanity. Wisdom and compassion are seen as the two wings of enlightenment. Both are essential for balanced spiritual development. The Tibetan Bardo also presents its unique challenges. The primary challenge is distraction. Our modern world, with its constant barrage of information and stimuli, makes it easy to live on the surface, caught up in endless activities, desires, and anxieties, rarely pausing to look within or to contemplate deeper truths. We can become so engrossed in the external drama that we forget the preciousness and impermanence of this life and the urgent need to make it meaningful. Another challenge is our ingrained habitual patterns and afflictive emotions, anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, ignorance, which cloud our judgment, distort our perception, and lead to unskillful actions. Furthermore, the pervasive ignorance, avidya, of our true nature and the nature of reality keeps us bound to the cycle of suffering. The teachings urge us not to waste this precious opportunity. They remind us that this human life is not guaranteed to last long, and death can come unexpectedly. Therefore, it is wise to engage in spiritual practice with a sense of gentle urgency, making the most of each day. Every interaction, every challenge, every joy can become a lesson, an opportunity to apply the teachings and grow in wisdom and compassion. The Tibetan Bardo is, in essence, our training ground. The skills we develop here, Awareness, ethical conduct, emotional balance, wisdom and compassion are not just for making this life better. They are crucial preparations for navigating the bardos of dreaming, meditation, dying, and what lies beyond. How we live in this bardo profoundly influences the experiences we will encounter in subsequent transitional states. Now let us turn to the Milam Bardo, the bardo of dreaming. Each night as we surrender to sleep, we enter this fascinating intermediate state. For most of us, dreams are a haphazard jumble of images, emotions and narratives, often nonsensical, sometimes frightening, occasionally blissful, but usually experienced with a lack of awareness that we are, in fact, dreaming. The Tibetan tradition, however, sees the dream state as far more significant. It is considered a powerful realm for understanding the mind, for loosening our attachment to the perceived solidity of waking reality, and for undertaking specific spiritual practices known as dream yoga, Milam Naljor. The Milam Bardo reveals, with remarkable clarity, the creative power of the mind. In dreams, we construct entire worlds, populated with characters and events, all arising from the subtle imprints and tendencies within our own consciousness. The laws of physics can be suspended. We can fly, pass through walls, or encounter beings from our past or imagination. This very malleability and illusoriness of the dream state make it an ideal training ground for recognizing the illusory nature of all appearances, including those of waking life, and, significantly, those encountered in the post-death bardos. The core practice of dream yoga begins with cultivating the intention during waking life to recognize dreams as dreams while they are occurring. This can be supported by practices such as reminding oneself throughout the day that this is a dream, or I will recognize my dreams tonight. The aim is to carry this awareness into the dream state itself, leading to what is commonly known as lucid dreaming, the experience of knowing you are dreaming while the dream is still in progress. Once lucidity is achieved, a range of further practices can be undertaken within the dream. One can learn to transform dream content, changing frightening figures into peaceful ones, overcoming obstacles, or manifesting desired experiences. This is not merely for entertainment, but to develop mastery over the mind's projections and to overcome fear and attachment. One can practice multiplying dream objects or oneself to understand the empty, insubstantial nature of appearances. One can also engage in dream journeying, intentionally visiting sacred places or seeking teachings from enlightened beings within the dream. Furthermore, dreams can be a source of insight into one's own psychological patterns, unresolved conflicts, and karmic tendencies, providing valuable information for waking life practice. The Milam Bardo is considered a crucial preparation for the Chonyid Bardo, the bardo of luminous reality experienced after death. In the Chonyid Bardo, as we will explore later, consciousness encounters a dazzling array of visions, both peaceful and wrathful. These visions, like dream images, are projections of one's own mind. If one has trained in dream yoga to recognize dream appearances as mind-made illusions and to remain unafraid and lucid amidst them, one will be far better equipped to recognize the visions of the Chonyid Bardo as self-manifestations and thus avoid being overwhelmed by fear or confusion. Dreams, therefore, become a dress rehearsal for these more profound experiences. The challenges of the Milam Bardo include, firstly, simply failing to recognize dreams as dreams, being carried away by their apparent reality, just as we are often carried away by the illusions of waking life. Another challenge is forgetting dreams upon waking, or experiencing only dull, unclear dreams. Consistency in intention and practice during waking life is key to overcoming these. The ultimate aim of dream yoga is not just to have exciting lucid dreams, but to realize the dreamlike nature of all experience, both waking and dreaming, and to use this understanding to awaken to the clear light nature of mind that underlies both states. The continuity of awareness across waking and dreaming strengthens the mind's capacity to remain stable and luminous through all transitions. Finally, let us consider the Tibetan Bardo, the bardo of meditative concentration. This bardo refers to the states of deep meditative absorption, known in Sanskrit as dhyana or in Pali as jhana. These are states of profound stillness, clarity, and one-pointedness of mind, cultivated through specific meditation practices. While not everyone may experience the deepest levels of dhyana, any period of focused, stable meditation can be considered an entry into the Tibetan Bardo. It is a state where the ordinary discursive mind, with its restless chatter and distractions, temporarily subsides, allowing for a more direct and subtle experience of consciousness itself. The Tibetan Bardo is cultivated through practices aimed at developing shamatha, or calm abiding. This involves training the mind to rest, single-pointedly, on a chosen object of meditation, such as the breath, a visual image, or a mantra. As concentration deepens, the mind becomes increasingly stable, clear, and peaceful. Distractions lessen, and a sense of profound inner stillness and lucidity arises. Within this stable state of shamatha, vipassana, or insight meditation, can then be effectively practiced. Vipassana involves investigating the nature of reality, observing the impermanence, suffering, and no-self characteristics of all phenomena, including the meditative state itself. The experiences within the Tibetan Bardo can be quite profound. One may experience states of intense bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality. There can be a sense of the body dissolving, or of consciousness expanding beyond its usual confines. These states can offer powerful glimpses of the mind's deeper nature, its inherent luminosity and emptiness, and can provide a taste of the freedom that comes from transcending ordinary conceptual thought. They can act as experiential confirmations of the teachings on non-duality and the clear light. The Tibetan Bardo is an invaluable training ground for several reasons. Firstly, it develops immense mental stability and clarity. This focused attention is crucial for all aspects of spiritual practice and for navigating life's challenges with equanimity. Secondly, it allows us to become familiar with subtle states of consciousness, which are similar to those encountered in the dying process and in the post-death bardos. By learning to remain aware and composed in deep meditative states, we are preparing ourselves to maintain awareness during more critical transitions. Thirdly, the experiences of deep meditation can help to purify negative karmic imprints and strengthen positive ones, creating a more conducive inner environment for spiritual progress. The challenges of the Tibetan Bardo include overcoming initial distraction and restlessness. As concentration deepens, more subtle obstacles can arise, such as mental dullness or laxity, or, conversely, subtle excitement or agitation. There can also be a danger of becoming attached to blissful meditative experiences, mistaking them for ultimate liberation, rather than seeing them as skillful means or temporary states on the path. A qualified teacher is often essential for navigating these subtle stages of meditative practice. The profound stability and clarity developed in the Tibetan Bardo are directly relevant to the other Bardo experiences. The ability to maintain focused awareness is essential for recognizing the clear light in the Chikai Bardo at the moment of death. If the mind is accustomed to deep states of meditative absorption, it is more likely to recognize and abide in this ultimate luminosity. Similarly, the non-reactive awareness cultivated in meditation is crucial for navigating the often intense and potentially overwhelming visions of the Chonyid Bardo, allowing one to see them as mind's own display rather than being swept away by fear or fascination. In summary, these three Bardos of this existence, the Kyane Bardo of this life, the Milam Bardo of dreaming, and the Tibetan Bardo of meditation, are not separate, isolated compartments. They are interconnected fields of practice, each reinforcing and informing the others. The awareness cultivated in daily life supports our dream practice and our meditation. The insights gained in meditation enrich our waking life and can permeate our dreams. And the ability to recognize illusions and maintain lucidity in dreams provides invaluable training for navigating all states of consciousness, including the ultimate transition. By engaging consciously with these interim stages of our present existence, we transform our entire life into a path of awakening, a continuous opportunity to realize our deepest potential for wisdom, compassion, and liberation, gently preparing, moment by moment, breath by breath, dream by dream, for whatever transitions may lie ahead. As our journey through the Bardos of this existence gently unfolds, we now approach a threshold, a transition of profound significance. We turn our attention from the interim stages experienced in daily life, in dreaming, and in meditation, towards the Bardos that arise at the very culmination of this life, the process of dying and what lies immediately beyond. This is the Chikai Bardo, the Bardo of the moment of death, and the pivotal experience of encountering the primordial clear light. It is natural, perhaps, for a certain solemnity to accompany the contemplation of death. Yet, the Tibetan Buddhist teachings approach this ultimate transition not with morbidity or fear, but with remarkable clarity, compassion, and a profound sense of opportunity. They see the dying process not as a mere cessation of biological function, but as an intricate unfolding, a systematic dissolution of the grosser levels of body and mind, which, if understood and skillfully navigated, can lead to the ultimate liberation. The Bardo Thodol and related texts provide an extraordinary map of this inner territory, a guide intended to empower us, whether we are preparing for our own journey or supporting others through theirs. The transition into the Chikai Bardo begins with what is known as the process of dissolution. This occurs in stages, involving both an outer dissolution of the physical elements that constitute our body and an inner dissolution of increasingly subtle levels of consciousness. These stages are described with meticulous detail, corresponding to specific physical sensations and inner experiences. While the exact experience can vary for each individual, the general sequence is considered universal. Let us first consider the outer dissolution, where the 5 elements that compose our physical form gradually cease to function and dissolve back into their subtle essences. The first element to dissolve is earth. The earth element in our body is associated with solidity, structure, and form, our bones, muscles, tissues. As the earth element dissolves into the water element, the dying person may experience a sense of physical heaviness, as if sinking into the ground or being crushed by a great weight. Their body may feel weak and unable to support itself. Visibly, the limbs may become thin, the complexion may fade, and there might be a sense of the body losing its coherence. Internally, the corresponding sense faculty, our vision, begins to fail. Objects may appear blurred, distorted, or as if seen through a shimmering haze. The ability to open and close the eyes may be lost. The associated inner sign is often described as a mirage-like appearance, like heat waves rising from the ground on a hot day. Next, the water element dissolves into the fire element. The water element governs the fluids in our body, blood, lymph, saliva, etc., and is associated with cohesion. As it dissolves, the body may become increasingly dry. There might be intense thirst, and the mouth and nasal passages may feel parched. The remaining bodily fluids may cease to flow. The corresponding sense faculty, our hearing, begins to fade. External sounds become distant or indistinct, and eventually the ability to hear external sounds ceases, though inner sounds may still be perceived. The associated inner sign for the dissolution of water into fire is often described as an appearance like billowing smoke or mist. Then, the fire element dissolves into the air element. The fire element is responsible for body heat and metabolism. As it dissolves, the body progressively loses its warmth. A deep coldness may be felt, often starting from the extremities and moving inwards. The ability to digest food is lost. The corresponding sense faculty, our sense of smell, begins to fail. External odors can no longer be distinguished. The associated inner sign for the dissolution of fire into air is described as an appearance like flickering sparks or fireflies, perhaps seen in a dark space. Finally, the air element dissolves into consciousness. The air or wind element governs breath and all movement within the body. As it dissolves, breathing becomes increasingly difficult, shallow, and irregular. There may be gasping or rattling sounds. The inhalation becomes shorter, the exhalation longer, until finally the outer breath ceases altogether. At this point, the sense of touch and all physical sensations related to the body are lost. There is no longer awareness of physical contact or bodily form. The associated inner sign for the dissolution of air into consciousness is often described as an appearance like a flickering butter lamp, steady at first, then wavering, and finally about to be extinguished. It is important to remember that throughout this process of outer dissolution, while physical functions are failing, consciousness itself is still present, though it may be becoming more withdrawn and subtle. For someone who has practiced meditation and is familiar with observing the mind, these stages can be recognized as they occur, allowing for a degree of calm and awareness. For those unprepared, it can be a period of increasing fear, confusion, and distress. The presence of a calm, loving spiritual friend or guide, reading instructions or offering prayers, can be immensely supportive. Following the cessation of the outer breath and the dissolution of the gross physical elements, the inner dissolution begins. This involves the unraveling of the more subtle layers of conceptual consciousness. Our ordinary mind is said to operate with what are sometimes called the 80 innate conceptual thoughts, which are rooted in the three primary afflictive emotions: desire or attachment, anger or aversion, and ignorance or delusion. These now begin to dissolve. As the subtler conceptual thoughts dissolve, a series of three distinct inner visions or appearances are said to arise. These are sometimes linked to the dissolution of the subtle winds or energies that support these conceptual states, and to the subtle essences or drops, bindus, inherited from our parents, which are located in specific energy centers, chakras within the body. The first of these inner visions is often described as an appearance like a white, luminous, clear moonlit sky, empty and devoid of any clouds. This is sometimes called the white appearance or aloka. It is said to arise as the 33 types of conceptual thoughts rooted in anger or aversion dissolve, and as the white essence or white bodhicitta drop, inherited from the father, normally residing in the crown chakra, descends towards the heart center. This experience is often associated with a sense of great clarity and luminosity. Following this, the second inner vision arises, an appearance like a red or orange, luminous, sunlit sky, also empty and clear. This is known as the red appearance or alokabhasa, sometimes red increase. It occurs as the 40 types of conceptual thoughts rooted in desire or attachment dissolve, and as the red essence or red bodhicitta drop, inherited from the mother, normally residing in the navel or sacral chakra, ascends towards the heart center. This experience is often associated with a sense of great bliss. Then the third inner vision arises, an appearance like a dense, pitch-black darkness, as if in a sky completely devoid of any light, or like falling into a dark void. This is known as the black appearance, darkness, or avabhasa, sometimes black near attainment, or thopa nirba. It occurs as the 7 types of conceptual thoughts rooted in ignorance or delusion dissolve. It is also said to happen as the white and red essences meet and merge within the heart center, and consciousness is gathered into this central point. At this stage, for most ordinary individuals, there is a period of complete unconsciousness or a deep swoon, as if fainting. All gross and subtle conceptual activity has ceased. It is out of this profound darkness, this state of utter stillness beyond concepts, that the most extraordinary and pivotal moment of the entire dying process arises. This is the dawning of the Tibetan Bardo proper, the bardo of the moment of death itself, and with it the manifestation of the primordial clear light, Tibetan Osel, also known as the ground luminosity or the mother clear light. Imagine emerging from that profound blackness into an experience of utterly pure, boundless and radiant luminosity, like an infinitely vast, clear and stainless autumn sky, completely free from clouds, sun or moon, yet brilliantly self-shining. This is the clear light. It is not a light perceived by the physical eyes, for they have long ceased to function. It is the intrinsic radiance of awareness itself, the fundamental nature of mind, shining forth in its naked, unadorned reality, now that all the temporary obscurations of the gross and subtle conceptual mind have dissolved. This clear light is described as being empty, yet luminous. Empty, shunyata, means it is devoid of any inherent existence, any form, color, or characteristic that can be grasped or defined. It is beyond all conceptual elaborations, beyond subject and object, beyond birth and death. Luminous, prabhasvara, means it is inherently clear, radiant and cognizant. It is the very nature of knowing, of awareness itself. It is unobstructed, all-pervading and utterly pure. This clear light is, in essence, the Dharmakaya, the ultimate truth body, the unconditioned nature of reality, the ground of all being. And most profoundly, it is not something separate from us. It is our own most fundamental nature, our innate Buddha nature, now revealed directly. At this moment, a truly crucial opportunity for liberation arises. The Bardo Thodol and other texts emphasize that if the dying person can recognize this dawning clear light as their own intrinsic awareness, if they can rest in it without distraction, without grasping or fear, and merge with it, then liberation from the cycle of samsara is attained instantaneously. This recognition is not merely an intellectual understanding, but a direct experiential knowing, a profound and effortless abiding. It is sometimes described as the meeting of the mother clear light, the ground luminosity, and the child clear light, the practitioner's cultivated awareness of the clear light during life. When the child clear light, developed through spiritual practice and familiarization, recognizes its source in the mother clear light, it is like a child running into its mother's lap, or like space merging with space. An effortless and joyful union. This is called liberation in the basis, Kadag Gi Grolba, liberation in the primordial ground itself. However, here lies the profound challenge. For most beings who have not cultivated familiarity with the nature of their own mind during life, this direct encounter with the naked, formless, boundless clear light can be overwhelming, even terrifying. Lifetimes of ingrained habitual tendencies, of grasping at a solid self and a dualistic reality, create powerful obscurations. The sheer brilliance and vastness of the clear light can be too much for a mind accustomed to the dimmer, more constricted confines of conceptual thought. There may be fear of losing oneself in this formless expanse, or simply a lack of the necessary framework or training to recognize what is occurring. Due to these powerful habitual obscurations and lack of recognition, most individuals are said to fail to stabilize their awareness in the clear light. They may experience it for only a fleeting moment, the duration of a finger snap, before recoiling from its intensity or simply failing to recognize its significance. As a result, they fall back into a state of unconsciousness or a swoon, a momentary blankness, before the mind, driven by subtle karmic propensities, begins to stir again and transitions into the next Bardo state, the Chonyid Bardo, where more complex visionary experiences arise. This highlights the profound importance of preparation during life. The teachings of Mahamudra, Great Seal, and Dzogchen, Great Perfection, or Hatha Yoga, which are considered the pinnacle of the Vajrayana path in Tibetan Buddhism, place great emphasis on directly recognizing and familiarizing oneself with the nature of mind, its empty, luminous, and cognizant essence, while still alive. Practices like trekcho, cutting through hardness, or thoroughly cutting, in Dzogchen aim to directly introduce the practitioner to their own primordial awareness, their rigpa, which is identical in nature to the clear light that dawns at death. Through sustained practice, one learns to stabilize this recognition, to rest in this natural state, free from distraction amidst all the activities of daily life. When one has become deeply familiar with this intrinsic awareness during life, when the child clear light has been nurtured and strengthened, then the dawning of the mother clear light at death is not a shocking or unfamiliar event. It is like meeting an old, dear friend. The recognition is natural and effortless. The texts say that for such a practitioner, the experience of death is like a child returning to its mother's lap, or water flowing into water. It is a joyful homecoming. Even for those not engaged in such advanced practices, any genuine spiritual path that cultivates mindfulness, understanding of impermanence, compassion, and some degree of meditative stability can be immensely beneficial. These practices help to weaken the grip of dualistic thinking, reduce fear and attachment, and create a more spacious and aware mind. Even a basic intellectual understanding of the Bardo process, particularly the dawning of the clear light, can plant a seed that may ripen at the crucial moment, providing a reference point for recognition. The guidance of a qualified spiritual teacher, Lama, is considered invaluable, as they can introduce the nature of mind and provide the skillful means to stabilize that recognition. The Chikai Bardo, therefore, with its radiant dawning of the primordial clear light, represents the single greatest opportunity for enlightenment within the entire cycle of existence. It is the moment when our true nature, the ultimate reality, is most directly and nakedly revealed. How we meet this moment is profoundly influenced by how we have lived, how we have trained our minds, and the depth of our understanding. Even if full liberation is not attained here, the degree of awareness and peace with which one passes through this stage significantly impacts the journey through the subsequent Bardos. As the light of this ultimate ground fades for those who do not recognize it, or as the brief unconsciousness lifts, the journey of consciousness continues, propelled by the subtle winds of karma. The mind begins to stir, and the experiences of the next intermediate state, the Chonyid Bardo, the Bardo of luminous reality, begin to unfold, which we shall explore in our next gentle steps together. For now, let us rest in the profound understanding of this great dissolution and the ever-present possibility of awakening to the clear light that is our own deepest truth. We have traversed the profound moments of the Chikai Bardo, where the primordial clear light, the very essence of our being and of all reality, dawned in its naked, unadorned splendor. For those who, through lifetimes of practice and profound familiarity with the nature of mind, recognized this ultimate luminosity as their own, the journey culminated in liberation, emerging with the boundless expanse of enlightened awareness, like a river returning to the ocean. Yet for many, the sheer intensity of this direct encounter, or the ingrained habits of dualistic perception cultivated it over countless lifetimes, may have obscured this recognition. A fleeting moment of awe, perhaps, followed by a recoil, a subtle movement of grasping or aversion, or simply a falling back into a brief, deep unconsciousness, a swoon where all cognitive activity momentarily ceases. It is from this gentle oblivion, this temporary pause in the unfolding of consciousness, that the next stage of the journey into radiance commences. The mind, though still incredibly subtle and no longer tethered to a gross physical form, begins to stir. It finds itself in what is known as a subtle mental body, or radiant body, odlus, a body of light and energy, highly mobile and extraordinarily perceptive, capable of traversing vast distances instantaneously and passing through physical barriers. And with this re-emergence of subtle awareness, the consciousness enters the Chonyid Bardo, the Bardo of luminous Dharmata, or reality as it is. This is the second major Bardo encountered after physical death, a period where the innate radiance of mind, the very essence of the clear light that was previously too subtle or direct to grasp, now begins to unfold in a dazzling kaleidoscopic display of visions, sounds, and lights. The term Chonyid, Chothnyid, its Dharmata, the intrinsic nature of phenomena, reality in its ultimate unconditioned state, the suchness or thusness of things. So the Chonyid Bardo is the intermediate state where one directly experiences the projections of this ultimate reality, which are, in truth, the projections of one's own deepest mind. It is often described as a second chance for liberation, an opportunity to recognize the nature of these vivid appearances and thereby awaken. The duration of this bardo is said to be variable, traditionally described as lasting for a period of days, though this is a symbolic time frame, as our ordinary concept of linear time does not apply in these subtle states. The experience is intensely subjective, shaped by the individual's karmic imprints and level of spiritual development. The most crucial understanding to hold as we explore the Chonyid Bardo is this: all the phenomena encountered here, the brilliant lights, the resonant sounds, the appearances of peaceful and wrathful figures, are not external, independently existing entities. They are not beings or places existing out there, separate from the perceiving consciousness. Rather, they are the spontaneous, energetic manifestations of one's own mind, the self-radiance of one's own intrinsic awareness, the play of dharmata. They are like dream images, but experienced with a lucidity and intensity far exceeding ordinary dreams, precisely because the consciousness is now free from the constraints of the physical body and the gross conceptual mind. The vividness can be overwhelming, leading one to believe in their external reality if not properly prepared or guided by the wisdom teachings. This bardo unfolds as a magnificent, if sometimes challenging, display of light and sound. The Bardo Thodol describes a sequence of appearances often occurring over a series of symbolic days. Initially, the peaceful deities are said to manifest. These are not gods in the Western sense, but rather archetypal representations of the pure, enlightened qualities inherent within our own Buddha nature. They are Sambhogakaya forms, enjoyment body or body of communal enjoyment, which are subtle, luminous forms that enlightened beings manifest to communicate with advanced practitioners. Over the first several days of the Chonyid Bardo, the consciousness may encounter visions of the 5 Buddha families and their associated retinues. These are Vairochana, the Buddha of the center, often depicted as white, associated with the wisdom of Dharmadhatu, the sphere of ultimate reality, and the transmutation of the poison of ignorance or delusion. From Vairochana's heart, a brilliant, dazzling white light may radiate, along with a duller, smoky white light leading towards the realm of the gods. Akshobhya, or Vajrasattva, the Buddha of the East, often depicted as blue, associated with mirror-like wisdom and the transmutation of anger or aggression. A brilliant blue light shines from Akshobhya's heart, accompanied by a duller, greyish light leading towards the hell realms. Ratnasambhava, the Buddha of the South, often depicted as yellow, associated with the wisdom of equality and the transmutation of pride or miserliness. A brilliant yellow light emanates alongside a duller, bluish-yellow light leading towards the human realm. Amitabha, the Buddha of the West, often depicted as red, associated with discriminating awareness, wisdom, and the transmutation of desire or attachment. A brilliant red light radiates forth, along with a duller, reddish-pink light leading towards the realm of hungry ghosts, pretas. Amoghasiddhi, the Buddha of the North, often depicted as green, associated with all-accomplishing wisdom and the transmutation of jealousy or envy. A brilliant green light shines, accompanied by a duller reddish-black light leading towards the realm of jealous gods, asuras. Each of these primary Buddha figures appears with their consort, attendant bodhisattvas, and various symbolic implements, all bathed in light of their respective colors. The space may be filled with resonant sounds like the roar of 1,000 thunders, or music of unimaginable beauty. The entire display is one of overwhelming majesty, brilliance, and purity. The crucial instruction at this stage, as imparted by the Bardo Thodol, is to recognize these peaceful deities as the self-manifestations of one's own pure awareness, as expressions of one's own inherent enlightened qualities. One is encouraged not to be intimidated or awestruck into passivity, nor to be fearful, but to joyfully recognize them as coming to welcome one. The advice is to merge with the brilliant wisdom light associated with each Buddha family, understanding it as the radiance of one's own mind. If one can do this, if one can rest in the recognition of this non-dual display, liberation can occur. However, there are challenges. The sheer intensity and brilliance of these pure wisdom lights can be overwhelming for a consciousness unaccustomed to such purity. One might feel unworthy, small, or fearful in their presence. Simultaneously, alongside these brilliant wisdom lights, duller, more subdued lights associated with the 6 realms of samsaric existence also appear. Due to ingrained karmic habituations and a subtle aversion to the intensity of the pure lights, there is a danger that the consciousness might be drawn towards these duller, more familiar lights, which seem safer or more comfortable. For example, one might be drawn to the dull, smoky light associated with the God realm, rather than the dazzling white light of Vairochana's wisdom. To follow these duller lights leads one further into the cycle of rebirth, away from liberation. If liberation is not attained through recognizing the peaceful deities, the teachings say that the next phase of the Chonyid Bardo begins with the arising of the wrathful deities. This phase can be even more intense and potentially terrifying for the unprepared mind. Over another series of symbolic days, the consciousness encounters a host of formidable, awe-inspiring figures. Herukas, wrathful male enlightened beings, Dakinis, wrathful female enlightened beings, and various protectors, often depicted with multiple heads, limbs, and fearsome expressions, surrounded by blazing fires, wielding weapons, and emitting terrifying sounds. These figures are, in fact, the very same peaceful deities encountered earlier, but now appearing in their wrathful aspect, their dynamic, energetic, and transformative dimension. The appearance of the wrathful deities can be a moment of profound crisis or profound opportunity. For a mind that still clings to dualistic notions of good and evil, self and other, these visions can evoke overwhelming terror. The instinct might be to flee, to hide, to deny their reality. However, the essential instruction remains precisely the same as with the peaceful deities. Recognize these wrathful figures too, as the self-manifestations of one's own mind, as the dynamic play of primordial wisdom. They are not external demonic forces coming to punish or harm. They are the potent, untamed energy of one's own enlightened nature, the transformed power of one's own negative emotions and defilements. The anger that was once a poison, if recognized in its pure, energetic essence, is the mirror-like wisdom of Akshobhya. The pride, the desire, the jealousy, all the afflictions, when stripped of their egoic clinging and seen in their raw, energetic form, are expressions of specific wisdoms. The wrathful deities are fierce, but their fierceness is the fierceness of compassion, the power that cuts through delusion and obstacles. Their terrifying appearance is designed to shock the consciousness out of its complacency, to shatter its clinging to dualistic illusions. If one can recognize them as inseparable from one's own awareness, as empty of any inherent independent existence, and as expressions of the same underlying clear light that manifested in the Chikai Bardo, then even amidst these terrifying visions, liberation is possible. The Bardo Thodol provides specific recognitions for each wrathful deity, reminding the consciousness of their true nature and origin within one's own mind. The profound challenge here is, of course, fear. If the consciousness succumbs to terror, if it perceives these wrathful forms as truly other and hostile, it will try to escape. This very attempt to flee, born of dualistic confusion, only serves to propel the mind further into the grip of karmic forces and towards an unfavorable rebirth. The sounds, the lights, the forms, all are the mind's own orchestra playing its karmic score. This brings us to the deep significance of karma and mental projections in the Chonyid Bardo. The specific nature, intensity, and flavor of the visions encountered are intimately shaped by the individual's accumulated karma, the sum total of their past actions, thoughts, and intentions, and their deeply ingrained habitual tendencies. Someone with a lifetime of cultivating compassion and wisdom might experience these visions with greater clarity and less fear. Someone with strong negative imprints or unresolved emotional conflicts might experience more terrifying or confusing displays. The Chonyid Bardo is like a cosmic mirror reflecting the contents of one's own consciousness with unflinching honesty. However, the ultimate nature of all these projections, regardless of their pleasant or terrifying appearance, remains the same. They are the luminous, empty play of Dharmata. The entire Chonyid Bardo is thus a continuous opportunity for liberation. At any point, if the consciousness recognizes the true nature of the appearances, whether peaceful or wrathful, as self-display, as the radiance of its own mind, then the illusory drama dissolves, and one awakens to the fundamental ground of being. This is why the guidance of the Bardo Thodol, ideally read by a compassionate lama or spiritual friend, or powerfully remembered by the practitioner from their studies and meditations in life, is so vital. The words of the teaching act as constant reminders, as signposts pointing back to the non-dual truth, cutting through the fear and confusion that can arise. It is important to see the profound connection between these unfolding visions and the clear light experienced in the Chikhai Bardo. The dazzling lights and forms of the Chonyid Bardo are not something entirely new or separate from that initial clear light. Rather, they are the further elaboration, the dynamic unfolding, the differentiated radiance of that same fundamental luminosity. The clear light was the unmanifest potential, the pure, formless ground. The visions of the Chonyid Bardo are that ground beginning to express itself in increasingly complex, though still luminous and energetic forms. It is as if the pure white light of the sun, the clear light, is now passing through a prism, the karmic tendencies of the mind, and displaying its full spectrum of colors and forms, the visions of the Chonyid Bardo. The source is one, the manifestations many. Therefore, the path of familiarization during life is paramount. Practices like meditation on emptiness, shunyata, help to undermine our habitual belief in the solid, independent reality of phenomena. Deity yoga, a core practice in Vajrayana Buddhism, involves visualizing oneself as an enlightened deity, thereby identifying with the pure qualities of enlightened mind. This practice directly prepares one to recognize the deities encountered in the Chonyid Bardo, not as external beings, but as expressions of one's own deepest potential. Even simple mindfulness, the cultivation of non-judgmental awareness of our thoughts and emotions, helps to create the inner space and clarity needed to navigate such intense experiences without being overwhelmed. The teachings of the Chonyid Bardo are a testament to the profound compassion and wisdom of the Buddhist tradition. They offer guidance and hope, even in what might seem like the most disorienting and challenging of circumstances. They affirm that even when the mind projects its most terrifying aspects, the potential for liberation remains, rooted in the unchanging, luminous nature of awareness itself. If, however, despite all the guidance and opportunities, The consciousness fails to recognize the nature of these self-manifestations during the Chonyid Bardo. If it continues to be driven by fear, confusion, and karmic habit, then this Bardo too will eventually draw to a close. The luminous visions will fade, and the mind, now increasingly influenced by its karmic propensities and the strong urge for a tangible form, will begin to transition into the next phase, the Sidpa Bardo, the karmic Bardo of becoming, which is the Bardo of seeking rebirth. This next stage will carry its own distinct experiences, challenges, and opportunities as the journey of consciousness continues its relentless, cyclical unfolding, unless the chain of becoming is broken by the wisdom of recognition. We have journeyed through the radiant and at times formidable landscapes of the Chonyid Bardo, where the intrinsic luminosity of our own awareness manifested as a dazzling array of peaceful and wrathful visions. Each appearance, each sound, each light was a reflection of our deepest nature, a potential gateway to liberation had we recognized it as such. Yet for many, the ingrained habits of dualistic perception, the subtle veils of karmic obscuration, or the overwhelming intensity of the experience may have prevented this profound recognition. As the luminous displays of the Chonyid Bardo gradually fade, like a magnificent celestial pageant drawing to its close, the consciousness, still unmoored from a physical form but now increasingly driven by the powerful winds of past actions and habitual tendencies, enters the next intermediate state. This is the Sidpa Bardo, the karmic Bardo of becoming or rebirth. Sidpa, Tibetan Sridpa, means existence, becoming, or cyclic existence itself, samsara. This Bardo is characterized by the mind's powerful, instinctual urge to grasp onto a new form, to find a new locus of experience, driven by the accumulated karmic momentum of countless past lives. After the overwhelming clarity and intensity of the Chikai and Chonyid Bardos, the Sidpa Bardo can feel somewhat more murky, more driven by unconscious forces, though moments of clarity and choice can still arise. The consciousness, now in its subtle mental body, is highly mobile and possesses a form of clairvoyance, able to perceive various potential rebirth situations. However, this perception is often colored by the prevailing emotional states and karmic imprints, leading to experiences that can range from confusing and distressing to fleetingly pleasant, depending on the individual's karmic makeup. A key characteristic of the Sidpa Bardo is the overwhelming influence of karma. Karma, as we've touched upon, is the universal law of cause and effect, where our intentional actions of body, speech, and mind create imprints or seeds in our consciousness. These karmic seeds ripen over time, shaping our experiences, our predispositions, and the circumstances of our future lives. In the Sidpa Bardo, these karmic winds become particularly potent, like powerful currents guiding a ship without a rudder. The consciousness is drawn, almost irresistibly, towards conditions that resonate with its dominant karmic patterns and unresolved emotional tendencies. Good karma from past virtuous actions creates a pull towards more favorable rebirths, while negative karma from past unwholesome actions propels one towards less fortunate circumstances. The experiences within the Sidpa Bardo are described in the Bardo Thodal with rich, symbolic imagery. The consciousness may feel pursued by terrifying figures or natural disasters if negative karma is strong, or drawn towards beautiful, alluring scenes if positive karma predominates. These are not necessarily objective external realities, but, again, powerful projections of the mind, shaped by its karmic inheritance. One might experience intense emotions, fear, longing, confusion, anger, or desire, often without a clear object, driven by the raw, unfiltered energies of past conditioning. A critical phase within the Sidpa Bardo involves the judgment, or more accurately, the karmic accounting. This is not typically envisioned as a judgment by an external deity, but rather as a clear, almost unavoidable self-reckoning. The consciousness is said to perceive, with stark clarity, all the wholesome and unwholesome actions of its past life, as if laid out before it. The Lord of Death, Yama, often depicted in Tibetan iconography, can be understood as a personification of one's own conscience and the impartial functioning of karmic law. Good deeds are counted with white pebbles, bad deeds with black pebbles. This is not a punitive process, but a direct confrontation with the consequences of one's own actions, which naturally influences the trajectory towards the next rebirth. There is no escaping the truth of one's karmic ledger at this point. As the urge for rebirth intensifies, the consciousness in the Tibetan Bardo begins to seek out a suitable womb, a place where it can re-embody. This search is not usually a conscious, deliberate choice in the way we understand decision-making in our waking life. Instead, it is largely driven by karmic affinity and prevailing emotional states. The mind is drawn towards parental unions and environments that resonate with its particular karmic makeup and habitual desires or aversions. For example, if strong attachment was a dominant trait, one might be drawn to scenes of coupling with a sense of desire. If anger or aversion was strong, one might feel repelled or hostile towards one or both of the potential parents. The teachings describe how the consciousness, seeing potential parents in union, can be drawn towards them by strong feelings of desire for the parent of the opposite sex and aversion or jealousy towards the parent of the same sex, or vice versa. These powerful emotions, combined with the karmic pull, propel the consciousness into the womb, where it loses its previous clarity and enters into the process of forming a new physical body, thus beginning a new cycle of life, a new Tibetan Bardo. The moment of conception marks the end of the Tibetan Bardo and the beginning of a new samsaric existence. However, even in this seemingly overwhelming process driven by karmic forces, the Tibetan Bardo still offers crucial opportunities for influencing the rebirth process, and in some cases even for attaining liberation or securing a more favorable future. The Bardo Thodol provides specific instructions for this Bardo, aimed at helping the consciousness navigate these powerful currents with greater wisdom and skill. One of the primary instructions is to recognize the nature of the experiences. Just as in the Chonyid Bardo, the consciousness is reminded that the terrifying visions or alluring scenes are projections of its own mind, not inherently real. By recognizing this, fear can be diminished, and the reactive pull of desire and aversion can be lessened. Cultivating equanimity and detachment is key. Another vital instruction is to generate strong, positive aspirations and to avoid negative emotions. If one is able to maintain some degree of clarity, one should recall the teachings, take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels, and generate powerful aspirations for enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. One should strive to cultivate feelings of loving kindness, compassion, and renunciation of samsaric attachments. Even a single moment of pure positive intention can have a profound impact on the quality of the rebirth. Conversely, succumbing to anger, despair, or intense craving can lead to a less fortunate rebirth. A specific set of instructions involves closing the womb door to unfavorable rebirths and choosing a favorable one if possible. This is not easy, as the karmic forces are strong, but with awareness and skillful effort, some influence can be exerted. The teachings advise recognizing the signs of the different realms of rebirth. The Bardo Thodol describes specific visions or feelings associated with being drawn towards rebirth in one of the 6 realms of samsara: hell realms, hungry ghost realm, animal realm, human realm, demigod, asura realm, god realm. By recognizing these signs, one can try to resist the pull towards unfavorable realms like the lower 3: hell, hungry ghost, animal. Cultivating aversion to samsaric existence, one is encouraged to reflect on the inherent suffering and impermanence of all conditioned existence, thereby weakening the desperate craving for rebirth. Generating strong devotion and prayer. calling upon enlightened beings, bodhisattvas, or one's spiritual teacher for guidance and protection can be immensely powerful. Choosing a human rebirth. If possible, one should aspire to a human rebirth, particularly in a land where the Dharma is flourishing, as this provides the best opportunity for continued spiritual practice and eventual liberation. The instructions might guide the consciousness to visualize a favorable human birthplace and to enter the womb with a positive motivation, such as the wish to benefit others, transforming desire and aversion. If one sees potential parents in union, instead of reacting with ordinary desire or aversion, one is instructed to view them with pure perception, seeing them perhaps as manifestations of enlightened beings, or as representing the union of wisdom and compassion, and to enter the womb with the aspiration to attain enlightenment. For highly accomplished practitioners, particularly those with mastery in practices like Phawa, the transference of consciousness at the moment of death, the Siddha Bardo might be bypassed altogether, or they might have the capacity to consciously choose their next rebirth, perhaps as a tulku, a recognized reincarnate lama, to continue their compassionate activity. However, for most, the Siddha Bardo is a period where the momentum of past karma plays a dominant role. The teachings on the Siddha Bardo underscore the cyclical nature of existence, samsara. Unless liberation is attained in one of the preceding bardos, Chikai or Chonyid, the consciousness, driven by ignorance, not recognizing its true nature, and karma, the force of past actions, inevitably takes rebirth, continuing the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, death, and rebirth. This cycle is characterized by suffering and dissatisfaction, as long as its fundamental cause, ignorance, is not uprooted. Yet, even within this cyclical process, the Siddha Bardo highlights the continuity of consciousness and the inescapable consequence of our actions. It affirms that our present life, our thoughts, our intentions, and our deeds are not isolated events, but have profound implications for our future. This understanding can be a powerful impetus for ethical living and dedicated spiritual practice in our current Kyene Bardo. What we do now, how we train our minds now, directly shapes the experiences we will encounter in all future bardos, including the bardo of becoming. The Siddha Bardo, therefore, is not just a passive drifting towards a predetermined fate. It is a dynamic interplay of karmic momentum and moments of potential insight and choice. The more we cultivate awareness, wisdom, and compassion during our lifetime, the more equipped we will be to navigate these subtle and often challenging currents with clarity and purpose. Even if we cannot achieve full liberation in this life, preparing ourselves for the Siddha Bardo by purifying negative karma, accumulating merit through positive actions, and familiarizing ourselves with these teachings can significantly improve our chances of a favorable rebirth, one where we can continue our journey towards enlightenment. The entire Bardo narrative, from the initial dissolution of this life to the seeking of a new one, is a profound teaching on the nature of mind and reality. It reveals consciousness not as a mere byproduct of the physical brain, but as a fundamental continuum that persists beyond physical death, capable of experiencing profound states of clarity and luminosity, as well as being subject to the powerful forces of its own karmic conditioning. It emphasizes that our ultimate destiny is not sealed by an external power, but is shaped moment by moment, lifetime by lifetime, by our own understanding, our own intentions, and our own actions. As the consciousness in the Siddha Bardo finds its destined womb and a new life begins, the great cycle turns once more. Yet within this turning, the potential for awakening, for breaking free from the cycle, remains ever present. The journey through the Bardos, as described in these profound teachings, is ultimately a journey towards that awakening, a journey towards recognizing the luminous, empty, and compassionate nature that is our truest essence, an essence that is never truly lost, only temporarily obscured, waiting to be rediscovered in any moment, in any bardo, in any lifetime. Understanding this path of becoming is not to instill fear, but to inspire a profound sense of responsibility and hope. The responsibility to live wisely now, and the hope that liberation is always within reach. And so our journey through the intricate landscapes of the Tibetan Bardos, from the subtle transitions of this very life to the profound passages beyond, draws to a gentle close for tonight. As these ancient whispers recede, like echoes in the dawn of your awareness, let us reflect for a moment on the resonance they leave within us, on the wisdom that can illuminate our path as we prepare for peaceful rest. We have traversed the Tibetan Bardo, recognizing this precious human life as a profound opportunity for growth and awakening. We have glimpsed the Tibetan Bardo of dreaming, a nightly rehearsal for navigating the mind's projections, and the Tibetan Bardo of meditation, where stillness reveals the mind's deeper clarity. We then ventured into the heart of the great transition, the Tibetan Bardo, witnessing the outer and inner dissolution, and the awe-inspiring dawning of the primordial clear light, our own fundamental nature, luminous and empty. We explored the Tibetan Bardo, where the radiance of reality unfolded as a vivid display of peaceful and wrathful forms, all arising from the creative expanse of our own awareness. And finally, we navigated the Tibetan Bardo, the path of becoming, where the winds of karma guide the search for renewal, reminding us of the profound continuity of consciousness and the impact of our present actions on future horizons. The practical wisdom woven through these teachings is not intended to be merely academic, but to be deeply integrated into the fabric of our being. Understanding these transitional states, these bardos, can fundamentally transform our approach to life and diminish the fear that so often surrounds the unknown, particularly the great mystery of death. It encourages us to live with greater mindfulness, recognizing the impermanent, dreamlike quality of our experiences, and to cultivate compassion, knowing our deep interconnectedness with all beings. The practices of meditation, ethical conduct, and the cultivation of wisdom are not just esoteric pursuits, but essential tools for preparing ourselves. They are like gentle lamps, illuminating the path, helping us to navigate all states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, dying, and beyond, with greater clarity, courage, and peace. Each moment of presence, each act of kindness, each insight into the nature of reality is a step towards familiarizing ourselves with the luminous ground of our own being. The cyclical nature of existence, samsara, as described in these teachings, can seem daunting. Yet, within this very cycle lies the unwavering potential for liberation, for nirvana. This liberation is not found in some distant realm, but in the recognition of our own innate Buddha nature, the clear light awareness that is always present, though often obscured. As you now allow yourself to drift into deep and peaceful rest, may these echoes of ancient wisdom settle gently into your heart and mind. May they bring a sense of profound peace, a quiet clarity, and a gentle curiosity to your waking life. Remember that every breath, every dream, every moment of awareness is part of this sacred unfolding journey. These teachings are a gift, an invitation to live more fully, to love more deeply, and to approach all of life's transitions with an open heart and an unafraid mind. They remind us that even in the deepest darkness, the light of awareness shines, and that within every ending lies the seed of a new beginning. Sleep now, deeply and fully. Allow your mind to be still, held in the vast open awareness we have touched upon together. Rest in the knowledge that you are an intrinsic part of this wondrous, mysterious, and luminous unfolding. Sleep peacefully, dream wisely, and awaken refreshed, carrying a seed of this ancient wisdom within you. From all of us here at Sleep University, we wish you profound and healing rest. Good night.